Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Interchange, where we talk about everything to do with interpersonal communication. Today, we have with us our awesome guest called Genein, and I'll let Matt tell us more about her.
Yeah, welcome, Genein Letford. Today, we're going to be talking about intercultural creativity and creative thinking. Genein is the founder and CEO of CAFFE Strategies. She's a global leadership development executive coach, trainer, and consultant. She's the inventor of the 7 gems of intercultural creativity and the 16 diamond tools of creative thinking framework. She has a new book coming out this fall called The 7 Gems of Intercultural Creativity. And she is the host of CAFFE's Create and Grow Rich podcast. Welcome, Genein.
Thank you so much for having me here. You two are really fun, so I'm excited for our conversation today.
Awesome. Well, starting with the fun part then, we always begin by tell us something crazy, goofy, unique about you, Genein.
I believe that fear is a huge inhibitor from us really exploring our creative potential. So if I think I'm going to fear something, I just go for it and do it. So I have jumped off of a bridge in Costa Rica. I have jumped out of a plane, and I have sang karaoke on a cruise ship without the words, like karaoke. So there's something fun.
Wow, you are definitely my hero, because the number of times I tell Matt I'm not jumping off of anything, because he's not jumping, and I'm like, no, I'm good. But you're right, I should.
Oh,
yeah, yes. Well, a lot of my work, and one of my gems is perspective shifting. So like, what a great way to see the perspective of the birds, and the clouds is to jump.
Yes, you're right. Absolutely right.
No, I remember I've gone skydiving once when I was younger. And the second you jump out, you're like, what? Why did I do that? That was really a bad idea. And I just kept stressing out because I didn't do the tandem. I did like you go by yourself the first time.
Oh, wow.
And they kept telling you, okay, you pull this one, and if that parachute has any problems, you got to eject from it, and then you pull this one. And they said, don't pull this one first, because it'll get tangled up in the first one. And I just kept,
oh my goodness, yeah.
I'm going to screw this up. I'm going to pull the wrong one. Please don't pull the wrong one.
Yeah, the fact that you jumped without going tandem first, that's pretty impressive. Again.
Yeah, I'm a little bit crazy sometimes.
But I think that's the thing, though. It's that I feel like if I think about jumping off of anything, bridge or plane, is that I'm not sure about myself. It's exactly the reason why I'm afraid to jump. That fear of yours, you're able to overcome and just say, well, I'll just jump and then figure it out from there. But for me, it's like, I'm thinking about it right now here in my chair. It's not working out.
Well, actually, all of my work is based on brain science. I say I'm a street neuroscience scientist. I have my degrees in psychology and education, but I love the brain. And they said when you imagine yourself going through an event, it's the same reaction in the brain than if you're actually going through it. So that's why imagination work is so critical for creative thinking and just for us thinking up the innovative ideas, because your brain reacts the same to the perceived and to the actual.
Yeah, that's true. I remember reading some kind of study. They had people playing basketball. So they shot basketball hoops for real. And then another group just thought about shooting basketball hoops. And they almost did the same in terms of performance. They were pretty close to each other. So yeah, you can practice just inside your mind, and it works the same. That's really cool. And we're about the brain and all of that. And also talking about, jumping off the bridge. I mean, we've all started our own businesses, and that's a big jump off of the bridge. So maybe tell us, how did you get there? How did you get to start this company?
Sure. Well, I did a few years in corporate, and then I went into education. And so I taught it as an elementary school teacher for 15 years at the same school. So I was there, comfortable, had seniority, had health benefits, and just loved it. And then you get that feeling, and I had great students, and you get that feeling like that jump, that push, like, okay, it's time to move. Like the shift is happening. And this was about 6 months before the pandemic hit. And in June 2019, I said, this was it. I'm going to go and share this message, because I cultivated within the classroom the importance of creative thinking and integrating intercultural competence together, making sure my students had these skills before they left me. But then I saw the research about how children enter the K-12 system at 98% of their genius level, but they graduate 12th grade at about 10% are still holding on to that genius level. And then they surveyed about 30-year-olds, and there are only 2% of adults are operating at that genius level. Everyone else has conformed and has limited their ability to think creatively and think expansively and with divergent type of cognitive functioning. So I'm like, oh no, this is not good. And especially since technology is advancing at the rate that it's advancing. And then now you have the pandemic on top of that, where no one knows what the future looks like. Everyone's scrambling to try to find some new norm. So creative thinking is at its utmost importance right now. So I left the classroom, I started writing my books and just jumped off this metaphorical bridge and started speaking. And it took a while to really get it out there. Before, when people think about, oh, creativity, they laugh like, oh, that's just for kids, right? And yeah, like fun games, right? And now the work that you do, the work that I do, people are starting to pay attention because we're understanding more of the neuroscience behind it, of how important this work is.
Yeah, that's for sure. And that's, we just love playing games in general. It's fun to play games, but there is a lot of evidence coming out now that playing a game makes it more engaging, of course, but it makes that learning stick. It sticks harder in your brain. It also, for us, it creates an environment where you get some camaraderie because you're working together, but you also kind of let down your guard. It's a kind of a safe space to practice. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so have you learned similar things through, your street neuroscience?
Yes, my street degree. And yeah, I do sit under a few neuroscientists. On my podcast, I interviewed Dr. Michael Platt, who is out of the Wharton School of Business. He's also a neuroscientist. And there's just a lot of research that talks about marginalized consequence. And that's basically the work that you do. You're allowing people to experience learning techniques and cognitive processes without the fear of being just fired, or without the fear of being just the extra risk that some people have when they go about things. They just fear the worst. So with game playing, with the work that I do, you're marginalizing those consequences so they can really take the risk without that unneeded fear. And another thing that I found out under the work of Dr. Kenneth Weston, who is a neuroscientist, and we're looking at the child brain, how children learn within school. And the brain really, which you and I know, but the brain really learns like 10 times more going through the experience as opposed to just reading about it. And I'm all about books, but if you can read a book about the Niagara Falls or go to the Niagara Falls and feel the mist on you, hear the thundering water, the brain interacts with those two experiences differently. And so when the brain has more hooks to code the memory on, you're able to retrieve it more, and the new information gets attached to the old information better. So experience is 10 times, better to go through. And I think as leadership shifts during understanding what's going on under the hood, people will start recognizing how important the work that we do is.
Absolutely, I agree with you. It just reminds me of the concept. I know neuroscientists wrote about this, called Neurobics. And it goes to like what you're saying with the experiencing everything. In Neurobics, you want to exercise or experience something with all your senses. So like you said, you want to hear it, you want to see, you want to smell. If all of those are engaged at the same time, the memory you get out of that is so much bigger than, like you said, like just reading about it or imagining it. But yeah, you're creating all
connections in your brain, and the more connections you have, the easier it is to remember.
Mm-hmm. And that's so true. And I love when I first spoke to you, you introduced that concept to me. So I was like, yeah, I'm learning something new. I love it. When I meet people who know, of course, everyone has a different experience than you and they can share their story with you. But when people know extra scientific stuff that I can go and look up. So I went and looked up Neurobics, which was very great to just read about it, because it's, when you just know things intuitively, that things are right, but now you have the science to back it up. So that's exactly what happened, because my classes and my training, I involve all the senses. And if you look at things that the Japanese do, like the Japanese tea ceremony, it is the smells, the food, the decor, right? And of course, the tea, the music, like they are intentional about tantalizing, stimulating, that's the word I'm looking for, stimulating all of your senses. And so that multi-sensory engagement is key for when you want to retrieve. And in the end, as educators for children and as trainers for adults, we want people to be able to retrieve what they're learning in future situations. So if they're going to forget 60% of what we taught them, then that's a waste of all of our time. So really incorporating multisensory experiences is key for retrieval and transference of whatever the learning objective is.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, I think it's really it's so cool. It's very interesting, and it makes sense. Yeah, if you think about it. I mean, if I look back at all of my memories from my past, I'm not just remembering like some words that I read or something that somebody told me. Most of the time, I remember all of the stuff that goes along with it. Like you said, the smells, the sounds, what environment was I in, who was I with. So it completely makes sense. And so in terms of you've learned a lot and have a lot of education and practice with this. How do you use that to teach what you teach?
It's funny, I've had my training in elementary ed, but it's the same concept. It's the same brain, so it's just me transferring what worked for me in the classroom to what's working, what's going to work for the workforce and how they're changing it. I will say it's a little bit more hard because it's the rigidness, and changing the concept of leadership. I just interviewed Dr. Timothy Clark on my podcast, and he's the author of the 4 stages of psychological safety. And so he talked about just how the imperialistic form of leadership is out the door, like I'm the leader and what I say go and you do what I say and don't talk back. It's like, if that's the way you're running your company, you're going to crash and burn. Just because all of the innovative ideas are at different levels of the company, and people are bringing a concept that Nilofer Merchant coined in the Harvard Business Review, the onlyness of you. So I know you guys have seen it within your game playing scenarios, how people bring up these interesting perspectives because they've had an interesting experience in their previous, just in their past. And so really allowing people to shine I call them the facets, right, of a diamond, allowing people to shine bright through their many facets. It's going to be how companies are going to have that innovative edge.
Yeah, exactly. And so through this process, what have you seen? What has been the biggest benefit, or what are some really cool or interesting things you've seen come out of this?
Well, when you are dealing with belief systems, it's a little bit difficult. Frederick Douglass said it's easier to build children than to repair broken men and women, right? And so when we're dealing with adults, we have to kind of unravel false belief systems and limited thinking, and it's something I'm terming creative abuse. When they were a child, someone said, your ideas are stupid, and so they never speak up ever again. That. Yeah. And so we have to work through all of that, that cognitive junk that may have been built up, and seeing them work through it, and then seeing them rebuild, and actually seeing the aha moment of, I am creative. I do have ideas that actually have value, and I actually have the confidence. Confidence is the big thing. A lot of people can have ideas, but it's that confidence to share, which is connected to psychological safety, right? But just to see that aha moment, and then to see the different tools that they're now incorporating to actually be well as humans, but also to be well in their organization as well.
Yeah. No, that's a good point you make. I think I also read it in this psycho-cybernetics book. The what you've been told in the past, and then you hold on to that belief as true, and then you spend so much time in your life believing that is true, but then you reach some point and you look back and you're like, oh, that's not true. I just came up with that judgment complete. Like one person said, I was silly in math. I couldn't ever do math. And then I held on to that forever. And then you reach a point, you're like, but who was that person? How, why did they change my timeline? It's been a lie the whole time. And so now you have to kind of change, you have to, okay, no, I am good at math and I'm going to be good at math, So yeah, it's interesting you mentioned that.
But it's, we sit and laugh about it, but a lot of people have that hang up. You'd be surprised of how many people I meet and saying, oh, I don't sing out loud because one person in the 10th grade said this one comment and you have no idea where they are. And that's just how powerful the brain is and how powerful emotion is. In my studies, teachers and facilitators need to be very aware of how emotion is a part of the learning process. You can't separate them. And so if there's an emotional cue that's encoded with the concept of, oh, you suck at math, and there's an emotion, the brain's going to hold on to that even more. And so, but it's the opposite too. If there's an emotion of happiness and suspense, and I wonder what's going to happen, and as I'm learning, and that's why your work is so important, because you bring in that emotion of the brain needs that eureka moment. Oh, I got it, and that does something for their confidence, for their creative thinking, for their ability to make associations. And that's key. And so I think as neuroscience expands and as people like you and me, I think we're bridges and we're also translators. So we're translating the hard science. And I love the fact that you read and all this stuff. That's like, that's my new friend. But we're translating the hard science into easy speak. So everyday people can understand, here's what's going on and here's why that's important. Because, not everyone can read an academic thesis that's 60 pages long, but I can. I love that stuff. But I can also teach it to an 8th grade grader. So, it's finding people like that can be that bridge.
No, I think it's really cool. And we're total nerds in every sense of the form of the word, but also creative. And it's really, it's exciting I love just science and technology and all of that, but how can you combine it to do something different in a creative way and help people? So I think it's so much fun and it's so cool.
Now, sorry, before you ask the next thing, I just wanted to clarify as I was thinking about it. You have been teaching like the elementary school, and then you're now teaching adults, and maybe you've answered this and I just missed it, but do you see a resistance in teaching adults? Actually,
I see a new form of freedom. Because just because you're an adult doesn't mean, remember when you were a kid, because you two have children, so you've seen classrooms. And do you see a difference between the kindergarten classroom and the 12th grade classroom? It's like, why do the kinders have so much fun? The desks are movables, there's things on the wall, it's colorful, there's manipulatives. And then you go to a 12th grade classroom and a lot of them look like jails. There's nothing on the wall, the desks are in a row. And then you go into the workforce and then you're in a cubicle and there's, and you're not allowed to talk to one another. And, that's why the water cool conversations happen, because I need connection, because we're social beings. We're wired for connection and we're observant beings. We're wired to interact with stimuli around us. And so just because you get into adulthood doesn't mean you don't deserve the same things that the 5-year-olds do. You're just doing it in a different way. And so when I come and I train, I bring Legos, I bring Play-Doh, because it's all about the brain communicating a concept in another form. And there's your creative thinking work. Can you communicate this concept in multiple forms?
Yeah, exactly. And I think about kind of going back to your point of, as a child, you have this kind of playful environment. You're expected to play and be open-minded. And as you go through life, you lose that. And I think even as parents, we're part of the problem. I know I have been sometimes, why did you make this mess? Or why did you spill that? And I've realized, man, that was an opportunity. And now I made that child scared to make a mess. And they're going to be scared to fail, scared to try something, right? To learn something. And so now I've tried to go the other way and say, make a mess. Make a lot of messes, just keep trying, keep experimenting, learn from your experiments, learn from your failures. Don't do anything dangerous or, hurt yourself, be careful. But I think it's just some way maybe it's innate in being a parent, or maybe it's society, but you have this kind of natural tendency to get frustrated when a child does something you don't want them to do.
It's very interesting to see that, because now I'm like, I know exactly which moment he's talking about. When he had that aha moment and then he told them to do whatever, I was the one in panic, because I was like, whoa, they're making a big, what's happening? Why is this kid dirty? Oh my God, my head is losing it.
Well, let me calm some of your fears. First of all, and this is a whole other podcast. We can talk about kids and that, but I will say this. First of all, congratulations for self monitoring and being aware to say, oh, okay, I said that maybe I should do this, because that's a big step in itself. So congratulations to you. And another thing is be aware of the concept of what is it? Learned. My goodness, it's in a book by Chip Heath and Dan Heath, The Curse of Knowledge. That's what it's called. So you as a grown man, you know what's going to happen if you take a water bottle and you turn it upside down and water falls out. Your 2-year-old does not know what's going to happen. Mm-hmm. So you're approaching that situation with everything in place because you've had that happen to you several times since you've been alive. Uh-huh. But I tell people who are caretakers, be aware that the child is curious and he or she is interacting with gravity. They're interacting with a displacement of a liquid. They're interacting with, a liquid upon a force. So I can give you once I give you big scientific names, it's like, oh, okay, right? As opposed to we just see they're making a mess that I have to clean up. But and I had to go over this with my husband because he is very, everything in its place and everything in its place. And I'm like, let's be free, So, when we went to Japan, I was like, let's see if we can get home. He was like, no, we need to line everything up. And so we meet each other in the middle. But he has done a great job with our 3-year-old son, just asking, wait, is he being curious about something? So it's giving them that space to be curious, but on the other side, it's also saying, okay, you've had a lot of exploration time, and now it's time to clean up. So you're still giving them those boundaries, but you're making sure. And I love the fact that you said now your child might be afraid to make mistakes, and then you caught that, and now you're giving your child space, because a grown-up who's afraid to make mistakes is a grown-up who does not create or innovate. So that's wonderful that you caught it before your child had 10 years of being chastised for making mistakes.
Yeah.
Oh, that's good. Yeah, I like that. They are interacting with the world around them, like you say, with gravity and all that. That's a really good thought. They also need to interact with the broom and the mop. Need to experience that too.
And
they will.
But yeah, I like that.
But yeah, life, when I look at it now, I think everything is just one big giant experiment, or a bunch of little experiments, really, and you just constantly experimenting. Being an entrepreneur is part of that.
Mm-hmm.
You test and measure.
Let's see what's going to happen. Yeah. Yes. And so, it starts when they're infants. Let's put this in my mouth, see what it tastes like.
Yeah, exactly. Cool. So cool. This has been a really awesome conversation. I'm sure we're going to have a ton more. If you had one kind of key takeaway from all of this, what would that be?
Okay, wait, before we answer that, I just had one thing. Okay. Can you tell us a little bit more about the book you're writing?
Yes, so it's the 7 Gems of Intercultural Creativity, and it's looking at how does cultural competence, which is your ability to interact with different cultures. When I say cultures, I don't just mean ethnic or national cultures. I mean groups of people with different lived experiences, right, and values and beliefs. So you can have social, economic cultures, educational. There's different demographics that shape the way that we see the world, right? Mm-hmm. And so we're looking at the intersection of intercultural competence and creative thinking ability. So how does having an organization or an environment that has that inclusive, belonging culture with people who have intercultural competence, how does that support the creative thinking of those individuals? They're actually very well correlated. So I introduced the 7 gems, which is the growth mindset, the empathetic way, cultural observation, curiosity, perspective shifting, authentic adaptation. And then the last gem is being a bridge, creating across cultures. And you want people to get to that last gem to have all these processes in place so they are able to be that connector of cultural ideas and cultural people, right?
Oh, wow.
That's really cool. I love the 7 gems idea. Yeah, we need to do something like that.
Yeah.
We need 7 something.
That's awesome. But
use 7 or 3. Well, just where the brain works, right? The brain works well with a number. So you have your 7 effective 7 habits of highly effective people, or 12 this, or 10 that, or just whatever number works for you. It doesn't have to be 7.
Cool. That's awesome.
I like 7. Lucky number.
Yeah. Well, we can't wait to read that book. I really can't wait.
Oh, thanks. Well, hopefully I can send you a small portion, and maybe you can write a small testimonial, and I can put your name in the book.
Woohoo!
I send it around the world. Because I do know you read.
Yes. Cool. That's awesome. Awesome.
Yeah. Oh, and so I guess back to my last question. Is there kind of a key takeaway from this conversation that you'd like to share?
Just the fact that synergy is possible. So just with meeting you two and hearing about what you do, and then my brain is creatively seeing the connections and just seeing, and then learning from you two. Like I said before, I love meeting people who have things to share as well. It's not just me giving them information, but they're educating me as well. Like the educator is about to be educated, right? It's just a beautiful thing. So I just want to encourage people that connection is key, even in a pandemic. I think I met more people during this pandemic than I have just in my normal, day-to-day life. And people around the world with stories that I would not have been exposed to. And the number one indicator of a highly creative person is openness to experience. And the number one indicator of a highly cultural competent person is openness to people with different lived experiences. So the fact that we're doing this is perfect.
Oh, that's amazing.
No, we've learned a lot being because we're both kind of introverts by nature, being engineers, and we've been reaching out to so many people and networking lately, and it's been so awesome to meet cool people like you and learn so much and share and help each other. So thank you.
Thank you. Yeah.
Is there anything else you want to share? You can shamelessly self-promote anything you want to promote.
Sure. Well, just keep an eye out for the book. I love to connect with people on LinkedIn. I'm on Twitter and Facebook, but I'm mostly active on LinkedIn. And you can check out CAFFEstrategies.com, CAFFE strategies.com. That stands for Creative Advancement for Financial Empowerment, because your creative health does affect your financial wealth. But the intercultural creativity is really what I'm focused on now. So I would love to connect with whoever wants to connect and be more creative.
Awesome.
Yeah, awesome.
Thank you so much, Genein Letford, CEO of CAFFE Strategies. We really had a great time, and we'll post all the links to your information and everything in the social media posts and on YouTube and all that.
Sounds great. Thank you so much.